Hello, everybody. Now, one of the things I've been most struck by in my years of marking the Abitur is the relatively poor quality, or indeed the complete lack of introductions to the answers to essay questions. So the purpose of this video is to show you how to write a good, solid introduction. So I've got three concrete examples of introductions that you could write, and I'm going to read them out to you and try to divide them into their most important component parts. The idea being, if you look at these component parts, then with a small amount of variation, you can modify these introductions and use them for basically any question that you might be asked. So here's the first question. This would be an introduction for an analysis question, so the second part of the written Abitur exam, and more specifically a question where you're asked to analyze a text that you're given, for example, on the topic of loneliness, and then you have to relate what you've extracted from that analysis of the text to a character from, say, Crooked Letter, or Gran Torino. So here goes. I'll just read it out to you first of all. Loneliness is something many people have to face in life. It can have severe consequences for both physical and mental health. Both the text by John Smith and the novel Crooked Letter by Tom Franklin broach the topic of loneliness and the effects it can have on people's lives. In the following, I will analyze the text and then relate its central points to the character of Larry from the novel. So let's break that down into a little bit more detail. And what we have first of all in that answer is a general brief introduction to the topic we're dealing with. So that would be: loneliness is something many people have to face in life. It can have severe consequences for both physical and mental health. We don't need to write any more than that. Next, we have a sentence showing the relevance of this topic to both the text and the novel. And this is a place where you can also mention the author's names. So let me read that out to you. Both the text by John Smith and the novel Crooked Letter by Tom Franklin broach the topic of loneliness and the effects it can have on people's lives. And then finally, just one brief sentence saying how you're going to proceed. Some people would say that's over-structuring, and I do understand that argument. On the other hand, it's just a little bit of help, both for the person reading your essay and for you yourself, to know how you're going to proceed. So let me read out that section. In the following, I will analyze the text and then relate its central points to the character of Larry from the novel. Okay, so to recapitulate, you've got one sentence as a general introduction to the topic, then another one demonstrating the relevance of the topic to both the text and the novel, and then one really brief sentence where you lay out how you're going to proceed. So let's do the same thing now for a composition question. That's the third part of the written Abitur, where you're asked to comment on a quotation. So let's take as a simple example a quotation like, "The harder you try to escape from the vicious circle of violence, the more difficult it is." And in a question like that, you may well also be asked to take Gran Torino or Crooked Letter as your starting point. So let me read out the introduction to a question like that. Both individuals and societies become trapped in circles of violence, one violent act leading inevitably to the next. On an individual or family level, this can lead to bloody vendettas, in the international sphere to world wars. The quotation, spoken by John Smith during his presidential inauguration in 1957, broaches precisely this issue. In the following, I will briefly interpret the various facets of the quotation and then comment on it, providing several examples from the film Gran Torino. So let's break this one down too. First of all, we have the general introduction to the topic. Both individuals and societies become trapped in circles of violence, one violent act leading inevitably to the next. On an individual or family level, this can lead to bloody vendettas in the international sphere to world wars. Then, just one brief sentence mentioning the source of the quotation, so who spoke it and when, in what context, things like that. The quotation spoken by John Smith during his presidential inauguration in 1957. By the way, I invented President John Smith, in case you hadn't noticed. So, the third part of this introduction would be just a very brief phrase mentioning the central topic of the quotation, what's it about in a nutshell. The quotation broaches precisely this issue. We've already mentioned that it's about violence and circles of violence. And then finally, like in the last introduction, one brief sentence in which we say how we're going to proceed. In the following, I will briefly interpret the various facets of the quotation and then comment on it, providing several examples from the film Gran Torino. Okay, so to sum that up, we've got a general introduction to the topic, the source of the quotation, the central topic of the quotation in a nutshell, and then what you're going to do, how you're going to proceed. So finally, another composition question, this time where you're asked to discuss a statement. And let's take as our example a statement by Greta Thunberg stating that she's in favor of scaling back Western economic activity in pursuit of her goal of zero carbon emissions. Greta Thunberg, the Swedish teenager who has achieved international fame as the figurehead of the Fridays for Future movement, has both fanatical supporters and passionate detractors. In this quotation from a speech she gave in London in 2019, she makes clear her support for a zero carbon economy by the year 2025. In the following, I will present arguments both in support of and criticizing her position, and will state my own opinion on this important issue. So again, here we have a sentence as a general introduction to the topic. Greta Thunberg, the Swedish teenager who has achieved international fame as the figurehead of the Fridays for Future movement, and then has both fanatical supporters and passionate detractors. And I included that clause, both fanatical supporters and passionate detractors, to make clear that this is a discuss question, so we're going to have to present both sides of the debate, if you like. After that, again, we have the source of the quotation. In this quotation from a speech she gave in London in 2019, followed by the central topic of the quotation. She makes clear her support for a zero carbon economy by the year 2025. And then, as with the other introductions, what you're going to do. In the following, I will present arguments both in support of and criticizing her position, and will state my opinion on this own important issue. Note, in support of and criticizing, because like I said, it's a question where you're asked to discuss or present both sides of the matter. Okay, I hope that helps you a little bit and that you'll now be able to improve your writing of introductions, and I'll see you soon. Bye.